So we're here with Annabel this morning talking about, well, we like to call it early menopause, but medically it's called premature ovarian failure by the NHS, which is a bit of a horrible term.
It's quite
really.
harsh.
Very harsh.
Can we ask, what happened? How were you diagnosed? You have premature ovarian failure.
So I think it was a case of, so I was 15 or 14 when I first started realising, I think with a lot of other girls around that time, obviously you start your periods and you start sort of learning things, and my mum's always sort of said, we're late developers, we're always sort of like later on. My sister didn't start having her periods until she was sort of 16, but even that she was put on the pill to sort of regulate it. I think that's just their sort of go-to thing if you decided to just, how you've had a few, but it's not constantly every month, so they're just like, right, straight on the pill then. But yeah, I think it got quite like, looking back now it's so pathetic, but I started to like lie about it, and I remember I was like at a school performance, I was like to my mum, I think I was on my period, like literally nothing there, like I was just like wanting it, and so like maybe if you want it and you say it enough it like comes. So my mum was like, okay, like here's a pad, sort of, really terrible it's happened on your performance day, and I was like, no, it's fine, and then we went home and she was like, give me your pad, give me your underwear. And then she was like, there's nothing in it, like, are you sure it's not? And I was like, oh no, it's like when I went to the toilet, there's loads of blood there. And then she was like, okay. And then like literally a couple of months later, still nothing nothing happening at all. And my mum was like, well, let's just go to the doctor anyway. We had the same thing with Sammy, it's just good to sort of get checked out, just to see what it is. My mum had always had problems, getting pregnant and stuff like that as well, so I had to be very sort of, regimental with it.
So your mum she's let's stop process.
Exactly. So she was just like, well, we might as well just go for a checkup to see what's going on, just sort of like motherly advice. And obviously at that point I was still sort of saying, I think it's I think I have some periods, but it's not very regular, but honestly there was nothing, and looking back it's there was actually nothing at all, nothing was going on.
So it wasn't even that you started and they became irregular.
I think it's on my record is that I've had one period, natural, but I'm not even sure whether, obviously at the time when I was being diagnosed and go to hospitals, I would still be in that sort of mental frame where I wanted to say I've had one, as hopeful sort of thing, which was
periods are such a funny thing. You don't want them when you've got them.
You literally
but here we're all kind of going, oh God, this has been really difficult to deal with, and you're saying, I've had a period, because you want to be in the period.
It's really strange. I guess it's just the mentality, and especially when all your best friends are going through it as well, and you have those conversations. I remember ordering loads of you could get free tampon sample packs online, and I'd be like, might as well typing my address and stuff, and I was like, why have you ordered this? You don't need it. And it's I guess that was just I was trying to think. Exactly.
And as if almost by doing this.
Exactly. If I prepare myself, it will put me in the frame of mind, and something might happen. And then so just went to the doctors, and they started to do loads of tests, and obviously it starts with blood tests, and just going there from there and there and there. And then they were just getting a bit concerned because they were the LH levels and everything was all
luteinizing hormone.
Was all not right. It was too high, and then I think the FSH levels was
follicle stimulating hormone.
Wow, see, I don't even know.
I remember that from my biology O level. That's how old I am. I did O level, so I love it when I can remember that. And my biology teacher would be really proud that I could remember.
But I think it's when I was in science as well. You're reading about it, and then you're thinking in the back of your head, so is this what's happening to me? Or so it's really strange being in science lessons and learning about that, and then the doctors being well, actually you're completely the other way around, and you're completely wrong. And, your levels. So I was reading it and this is what I should be, but then I'd go to doctors and they'd be like, your levels are so messed up. And so they were basically well, what we can do is we'll basically just continue going on. We'll put you on the pill to try and regulate it and stimulate it and see what's going on. And so I think I was on for that for about a year, and that was great because obviously you'd have your break every month and you'd have that period, and I'd be like, it's my natural period, but actually it's just an artificial one, and I don't think they really explained that to me at the time. Right. So I got to the frame of mind, I was like, this is really good, it's it's actually happening, but it's not at all. And I didn't think that was ever really sort of explained, because obviously I was so young as well. So I think that when I got to 15 they were like, right, well we'll take you off it now because you've been on it for a year. and they were like, we'll do an ultrasound and we'll basically check to see if your womb's okay and everything like that. And they were like, your womb lining's grown loads, it's like thickened a lot, which is really good. It means, you know, you'll hopefully be able to carry. And they're like, but we're really worried because we can only see one ovary. And so we were obviously like, oh, okay, that's an issue.
Yeah.
They were like, but that ovary is so small, and it's literally like a quarter of the size of what it should be. So I think for them, that's when they kind of realised, oh, this is not good, like at all.
Yeah.
And we like, I remember us having to keep going back for like these ultrasounds, and like I know that like I love all the baby programs. It's like you look at the screen and you're like, there's a baby in there, and it's like. There's nothing in there. It's not even an ovary. They're like, this is where it. And I remember that on the screen that they're like, this is where it should be, and that's not. There's nothing there. And I was like, oh, okay. Like my mum.
Being prepared for that. Did it hit you at the time what that impact would have?
It honestly did not hit me. Like I just don't think that. I just think it was. You're still in that you're still in that time frame where you're like, I'm still young, something can happen. And like obviously everyone was trying to be as supportive as they could be and saying, you know, things might change, you never know, like you might just be a really late starter. So I think it only really hit me when I was like 20 or like a little bit older, where I was like, there's honestly nothing going on here.
No.
But I think it was fine. And my doctor that told me initially when I was 14, it must have been 15 at the time, but I remember going to the doctor and they were just like, we're basically going to give you this diagnosis. You've had your menopause. And I was like, I haven't even had my periods. I was like, I don't understand how that's possible that you can have they were just like, it's just like biologically, like, I don't know, it's just how it is really. I remember just sitting there, and I'm like obsessed with children and babies, like I love them more than, and all I ever said when I was younger was like, that's what I want. So that was really hard. And it was like, even going into like Marks and Spencer's and seeing the baby range, I just like burst into tears like immediately. And that was horrible, especially as like my family know as well how much I am maternal. Like.
So you're 15 at this point?
So yeah, 15, and then it was just continuing to go. And I remember obviously I was at school and I was constantly being taken out because I'd have to go to Oxford because they're very supportive there with IVF and things like that. They were sort of saying, if we can get it got to the stage where they're like, if we can get an egg from your very small ovary, which we named Penelope, just to like try and get through it, we're just like, we're just gonna give it a funny name and like love it, and it will be like our best friend. Exactly, we're like, oh, Penelope. So we kept going to Oxford, and they were like, if we can get an egg, we will put you like through IVF.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I'm like not even like in a relationship. I was like, I'm not. Like, this is not how I planned it, and it was that was difficult because you know you always want it to be with your partner and your husband, and you know do it naturally. They were just like, we'll just have to freeze them, and then you know hopefully they'll stay alive. But that never happened, and there was never any eggs being produced. So it was just sort of a case of trying
through the motions.
And that was fine. But I think I just remember the day when I got told, like I got my final diagnosis of premature ovarian failure, like my dad just came in and was just like, I've never seen him look so like disappointed. I remember my mum telling me, and she was like, and everyone says that it's really mean that she said this, but she said, we've made you wrong. And I was like, oh my god. I was like, you can't, like, don't say that, because I don't want to feel like I'm broken or anything like that. But I think it was just, as a mother,
100 unfortunate people.
Exactly, and I think for my mum, she just found it so heartbreaking, especially as she knew that I'd carry my doll to school every day. Like I was that obsessed with kids. And it was a hard time for the family. But we're the type of family where we don't really talk about it.
No.
We just get on, like come on, stern face, like not. So we've never really talked about it. And I remember my brother just once just kind of being like, I'm really sorry. Like, and it's just like, oh, like,
is he older than you?
Yeah, so my brother and sister are both really older. Sam was like, I'll give you one of my eggs, like I'll have your exactly. She was like, everyone was just trying to say like what they thought was the most supportive thing, but at the time it was literally just like there was nothing you could really say to make it better. But you know, life deals you shitty cards. So
have you found, I mean obviously you're with Patch, have you found it hard growing up and knowing that you haven't got that ability to have children?
I think
would that impact on
relationships? I think that was my main worry, and I remember my sister coming in my room that evening, like obviously we'd had the whole of, like my dad left work to come home, so everyone was kind of in the house, but like no one was really talking and just sitting in other rooms, and it was all quite awkward. I was just in my room, and obviously I was very upset, and Sam just came up, and I was just like, no one's going to want me now.
Oh.
And like that's obviously like a horrible thing for like a 15-year-old to think.
Yeah.
And it was just, now you just think that every relationship you get into, you have to tell them.
Yeah.
Like, I know for like 100%, like it's not even a case you kind of go through it together and then you realise that it's unfortunate. It's that I have to literally tell them before anything gets anything serious.
Expectations.
But it was like, I'm the most open person with it. Like, I would just tell boys.
Yes.
I would literally tell boys that I'd kiss on one night, just because I'd be like, just in case this does go any further, I can't have children. And they'd be like, what? I just,
well, you know, and your name is.
Yeah, they're just like, I'm really sorry, but you know, obviously I wasn't ready. But
coping strategy there.
yeah, it's just I just prefer to get it out done.
Yeah, and you haven't got that awkward moment later down the line.
But I think like obviously Patch is amazing, and there's always just been like, you'll be an amazing mother whether it's adoption or whatever. And I know that I can, if someone literally put a baby there, I would love it so much. Like I'm so addicted to children.
Yeah.
So there's not a problem with that, and now I feel like it's actually like a blessing that I can sort of turn other children's lives around and hopefully help them, which is a nice way to look at it. But at the time you're just so angry.
You've obviously come a long way.
It wasn't the way you would like it to have happened.
Yeah, it's 7 years ago now, but it's still, in some respects, it feels like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
And I'm still like coming to terms with it, but then at the same time, like, you've just got to move on, really, haven't you? It's not.
Well, no, I'm not going. Yeah, right. I was sort of finishing the sentence. Well, yeah, you've got to move on. I'm going. Obviously, I think you're remarkable.
Yeah.
I'm obviously. I've just never been through anything like that. So you've obviously.
Well, it's shocking to know that that happens. There's obviously women who leave having their children later in life through whatever circumstances they might have, and then find, when they hit 40 that they might not be able to.
Did you have any symptoms of going through the moment? So was it hot flushes? Did you have moods? Because maybe you would have known about mood swings because you're a teenager and you're going through this experience.
I think that's what was so difficult, is the fact that anyone that I had, I had a childhood boyfriend at the time, and he obviously had no idea what was going on, and he was terrible at biology, so didn't even understand women's anatomy. So it was just a case of, I would just be really horrible, and no one knew whether it was just teenage or it was just my personality or whether it was the pills that I was on. Yeah. But I got put on so many different pills because the first year where they were trying to regulate it was none of them were suiting me. I was just and my mum will vouch that I was a horrible, horrible person, and not just moody, just not interested in anything, not just didn't care. And then I finally found one that was really good, and we were happy on. But it did take a long time, and I think even that's stressful. You've obviously got your natural
So you're taking HRT.
So I'm taking HRT now, but I've been on that for quite a while. But I still obviously the NHS are amazing, but it's just I don't really know why I'm on it, and I think it's just a case of they're just sort of doing it to keep your bones strong and to keep.
Well, I think that's
all it is. It's just for someone,
osteoporosis and
exactly. That's what they're worried about now.
Yeah, the estrogen and
there's still this tiny niggle of hope in the back that maybe something magical, miracle would happen. And my best friend's oh, it's going to be your little Nemo.
Yeah.
Because that's that little egg that's left. That will be the one. But I'm now confused in terms of with HRT. I don't know whether it's a contraception. I don't know whether it's helping me. I don't know whether it will help continue to stimulate things just in case something was to happen. So I think that's kind of still the.
How often do you get have follow up, or are you seeing?
I haven't seen anyone for a long time now, but I think it's just because they were kind of after the HRT was prescribed, I think they were there's honestly not really a lot we can do.
Right.
They're obviously when you get to the stage that you might want to have children or possibly have IVF, we can try that out, blah blah blah. And they're obviously come back to the Oxford Hospital, but up until then they haven't really wanted any sort of follow-up.
So you just go through your GP?
So I would just go through my GP if anything was going on, and then
because there is it's called the Daisy Network.
The Daisy Network. That's the thing that they handed me when I was 15 years old, and I remember looking at it and just being what what is this? What is this? But I went online, and my mum was really keen for me to do it, just as a network to speak to people. But it said that I couldn't sign up because I wasn't 18.
Oh god!
And I was they need to address that. And I don't know whether they have. I don't know whether they have now. But at the time,
that's outrageous.
I was furious.
I assumed when I looked at that that was the whole reason.
I think that's the nature of what Annabelle's saying. It's so rare, and actually we don't know if they've addressed it now. So maybe
they might
haven't. They could think about it.
Yeah,
it's definitely something that, and I should have definitely contacted them, but I think at the time I was like furious, and I was like, why would a doctor that's meant to be on my side, and he was the lead gynecologist, I can't remember his name, is the lead gynecologist, and he was a very like horribly he just didn't understand.
Good job we can't remember his name then.
Yeah, it's just come to me, but I'm not going to say it. But he, I just remember my mum coming out and being like, he was so nasty, like there was no compassion there, and it's not because he's not a woman, because I've had some doctors that are unbelievably caring and understanding. It
was just straight down the line and
just
very,
like, here's Daisy Network, here's this, and that's it. And I was like, I'm 15 years old.
Which is really, you need sympathy and counselling really for that, at that age.
Exactly.
Are you involved with the Daisy Network now?
So I joined up again when I was at university, and when I studied photography I actually did a project through them. So I met another girl that had, who lives in Abergavenny in Wales, and she had a similar experience, but hers hasn't been diagnosed as absolutely nothing. It's just that she has got some issues and her periods weren't regular. So I did a project on her, which I found really sort of therapeutic, because obviously I got to speak to another young girl. And I don't know whether it's actually just a case of that there are loads of women that were looking at those forums but didn't feel comfortable enough doing it, because I know that I could have potentially started something and said, you know, I'm very, very, very young, is anyone out there, but didn't. Just because I think that just the general consensus of menopause is always to do with older women, and even early menopause is still an older woman than, you know, and not basically a teenager. And it can happen, and it is, you know, I think it definitely needs to be sort of addressed, but I'm not really sure what they could even do to sort of help it. I'm the type of person that I need to get through it.
And I think it's just knowing that you're not the only person out there.
Yeah, definitely.
I heard an amazing woman, I think she was in her late 20s, on the radio, maybe World Menopause Day or something last year, and I remember saying to you, and you said, oh, I think this woman was 28, and you said, I have a friend who went through it at 15, and I didn't even know you could do it.
It's not
so I think there are lots of people like you out
I think that there must
articulate young women who are going through and have had to sort of piece it all together. So
I think it's definitely something that I don't think you can really understand it at that age. Like, I know I certainly couldn't. Not necessarily process what was happening, but just understand like the chemical imbalances and all of that. Like, it's all very like terminology. You're constantly having these blood tests for different reasons, and you have no idea why. And even when they try
there's no answer either.
Exactly.
There's no reason in the first.
So nobody reviews your use of HRT. Your GP, you just go get it. You're on a repeat prescription, are you?
The one main thing that I would say about like NHS and doctors and people to get your prescription is that they need to read the files every single time. So I've been on HRT for a good like 3-4, I don't even know how many years now. Every single time I go to the counter, they're like, you do know this is for menopause? And I'm like, yes. And they're like, do you not need the pill? And I was like, no, this is what I need, thanks. Like, please do not let me like relive it every single time. But like, and even the sister that at my GP that does sort of my weight and stuff like that, she forgets every single time. I'm like, I literally come to you every single time. You're like, oh, why are you on this again? I was like, because I've had my menopause. And they're like, gosh, wow. I'm just like, oh, like why, like maybe like someone relive it over and over again. You wouldn't like look at someone without a leg and be like, are you sure you don't need another leg, or like something like that. And I know it's obviously hidden, but so no one's reviewed it since, and it's, you know, I should probably get it reviewed, but I guess it's just a case of until, you know,
well, I suppose
there's no need to really, and I can see their point of view. I'm quite happy. There's no problems.
And I think the answer would be exactly what you said, is that, you know, it's maintaining your levels of estrogen for bone health.
To keep your
and that's obviously the same with anyone that was experiencing menopause, regardless of their age. Like my bones, I had to have loads of bone scans and stuff like that to see if like, and apparently I've got bones of like an 80-year-old or something. And I was like, oh, wonderful, I'm 15. Like, I've never broken a bone, touch wood. But, you know, they're like, you need to be careful. Like, you need to. They tried to give me calcium tablets. They tried to give me everything just to.
Are you still taking those? Or
I refuse to take them. To my mum's like horror, I was like, I'm genuinely not taking them. Like that, I guess that was like a sort of defiance, yeah, like, but it got to the stage where when I was at uni in my first year, I stopped taking my pill without telling my mum, which is obviously a very stupid thing to do, and it's a very childish thing to do, and I wasn't proud of it. And I remember my sister just being like, why are you doing this? Like, I appreciate it's difficult, but you need to have it, and like, you need it. But I was just like, obviously at that stage it was probably more, not the upset stage, but like the anger stage, and it was just like me being like, I don't want to take it, I'm screwed anyway, can't have children, what's the point of me having to take it, it's embarrassing taking it every day, like it's a constant reminder. But now I've got to a stage where every time I take my pill I honestly don't think about it, whereas at the beginning
it's like a cycle, it's like a grief cycle.
Exactly, and you just look every single day, the next day, it's like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then it's like next pill, Monday, Tuesday, and it's just like, oh Jesus Christ. But like it was,
now it's just more
now it's just like, and like Patch is so good at being like, you're taking a pill, like blah blah blah, but like not, just because it's, I need to take it, it's something that I need to take, so yeah, but there's so many levels of like sort of understanding it and like getting to the point where you have accepted it, but you know that it's the best thing for you. And I think that for a lot of it, when you get told things like that, you have a stage where you're just like, do you know what, screw it, like even if I take it, it's not going to change anything.